Hi guys, this is Shuddy, not Diamond Dave, but I'm using the extraordinary reach of his YouTube channel to do a little product review of the Permarack that was used. I believe they used it in Jason Shaw's, in the Legends of Billiards straight pool challenge. So I actually saw this product about 2 years ago when I first started playing straight pool, and as you can see, and if you go back through some of my old straight pool videos from like 2 years ago, you can see that I used the donuts myself without the Permarack template, and you can see on my table right now I'm using the donuts without you can't tell that, but I applied these without using the Permarack template because I just received the Permarack template today. Now I looked at getting it a couple of years ago, but through eBay and his website there's not an international shipping option, and I live in Korea. So I just sort of gave up, and then seeing the Legends Straight Pool Challenge reminded me of its existence and of kind of the struggle I'd had applying the donuts myself in the correct position in the past. And having been a more frequent visitor of AZB forums these days, I noticed that the maker, I assume it's Dave B, has a presence on AZB, so I was able to message him and say, hey dude, noticed that your 2 selling points online don't offer international shipping. Is there any way we can sort of work around that? And he very promptly replied and said, yep, just send me your address, I'll send you a shipping cost, which I did. So for America to South Korea, it was about $20 US. So I can't imagine it would be any more expensive anywhere else in the world. America to South Korea is probably about as far as it gets. Well, anywhere fairly populated, I guess. So the product was $20 US, the shipping cost was $20 US roughly, so about $40 US to get it here. So I've already opened it, but I haven't applied it yet. These rings are from, I had applied these myself using a racking template and then doing a bit of table training, tapping the balls down, and then kind of adjusting, and it's a fairly tedious process. And as you'll see in a second, I didn't get it anywhere near correct. It was giving me a tight rack, but we'll see. So it came, I slipped it, it came in a bubble wrapped envelope, and I slipped it out basically like this. So he had an email with a nice little message, thanks for the order, with a copy of his receipt of my address and payment, and then a little note saying use these Avery labels with a specific number, and a little paper folded up with a bunch of those Avery labels. These are actually really freaking hard to buy in South Korea. I don't know why, but like in talking to Korean friends and everything, I would ask them like, where can I get? And they're like, what are they? What are those things? I'm like, they're ring binders, like for, when you punch holes in paper. And they're like, no, I've got no idea where to buy those. So I actually had to order these online, and they were still difficult to get and quite expensive. So anyway, he includes some of those. And then of course, the important part is the template itself. I was worried that in shipping that, I knew it was going to be a thin template, but I didn't know exactly what the material was made from. So I was worried that in shipping that it could get bent and, damaged, and being all the way from America to South Korea. But it's a very thick, I don't know, I'm not a materials dude, mylar or something, or I don't know what this is made of, but it's a very thick plastic. So you can see, if I give it a good shake, it really would have had to be, it survived the trip pretty well anyway. I guess you could damage it if you wanted to, but it's thick enough and sturdy enough that not like a normal table template that it would get torn up or bent up in the mail. So the most important part, I guess. Anything else in there? No, nothing else in there. So like I said, I'd applied these ones myself just with an 8-ball template, and then training the table a little bit and using the sort of marks left on the table to position these donuts. But it's still, and you know, you would think that would be a fairly accurate way of doing it. Now, I haven't applied rings yet. We're going to do that together and you'll see the result. But if I center the top ring that I had, and you can see that I wasn't, you know, I was fairly, I mean, if this template turns out to be accurate, which we'll find out soon, then you can see I was fairly close, but a bit off. You know, these are up, and the donuts as I had them were giving me a tight rack. But I knew it was because they were actually closer than they should be, so the balls were being forced into each other. And occasionally I would, you know, playing straight pool, I'd break, and you know, you have your starting break that you always use, and so you get used to the patterns that come out from that break. And a couple of balls here would always just stay dead on these donuts after a break shot, just right in the middle. So I don't know if it was because the way the balls were being forced into each other, but I'll be interested to see if after applying the donuts using this template, which I'm assuming is very accurate, I'll be interested to see if that same thing happens, or if the balls get spread out a bit more. Now mainly I use the donuts because when I first started playing straight pool about 2 years ago, after Ruslan won the American 14-1, and I was really inspired by his style of play and just how smooth it was, and thought, you know, this is a beautiful game, and so I started playing. And as some of you know who've read my posts on AZB, I basically play pool in complete isolation. I don't play against anyone. I don't have any friends who play. I have a table in my house. I live on an island. I sometimes travel to the mainland for a tournament, but since COVID, there hasn't been any tournaments. So I basically, and in Korea, no one plays straight pool. And even my friends in Seoul don't play straight pool. So I basically had to learn straight pool by myself from scratch, from zero, just by watching good players play on YouTube. So at the beginning, I was doing a lot of re-racking, very short intervals of time between re-racks before I started getting through racks consistently. And I was using a diamond rack, a wooden diamond rack. I noticed really quickly that pushing the balls up left track marks, like where the balls would roll, and then marks all over the table from where my hands were like forcing the balls into position. So then I started using a template rack, and that was a bit better, but still not great. I'm sort of bending over and leaning over, and I've got quite a bad back. I get a lot of sciatic nerve pain. So sort of, you know, being over in this position, bending over, was putting a lot of stress on my lower back. I saw the Permarack, wasn't able to order it, did my own donut thing, and what that enables me to do is, and I'll show you later, but it enables me to just get the balls out, bring them into a triangle, and then just push them up with my hands and stop them like that. And it takes me 5 seconds to rack the balls without leaning over. It also stops me having to like push my hands down on the triangle, leave dirty marks all over the table. So I know there's a lot of discussion about whether template racks and whether these donut type racking systems should be used for straight pool. I personally don't care because I'm playing in my house against no one, by myself. So, you know, I posted a 100 run somewhere. I can't remember if it was Straight Pool Fanatics on Facebook or if it was on AZB or somewhere. I posted a 100 run and 140 or something. And one of the first comments that came up was, is this break legitimate? Because I wasn't using the donuts, I was using an 8-ball template, like the triangle 8-ball template. One of the first posts that came up is, should this run count because he's using a template? I don't give a fuck. To me, it counts. I'm not playing for a world record or in the American 14-1 championships. It's my house. I don't want my table to get dirty. I want the balls to be tightly racked because I want good splits, and the balls should be tightly racked for good splits. And if this does it for me, then I don't give a fuck really what everyone else thinks. As long as it doesn't interfere with my play and it makes it easier, my life easier. So that's my spiel. So what I'm going to do now is take you through applying the donuts with the template. So I'm going to pull these existing donuts off, give the table a bit of a brush down, a quick vacuum just around the racking area, and then we'll apply the donuts, rack the balls up, see how accurate it is, and I'll record a couple of break shots. I actually just sold my break cue today, so I don't have an actual break cue, but I can still give the balls a pretty good whack with my playing cue, and we'll see how they break once they're applied. All right, so cut to a montage of me cleaning the table. Okay, so I've given the table a good rundown. This black center line here was done by the cloth installer. When they installed the cloth, he did that with a laser level lined up. So I'm as confident as I can possibly be. He also did the foot spot with a laser level across the diamonds. And he did my kitchen line with a laser level as well. So I'm as confident as I can possibly be that this is accurate where it should be. So now I'm trusting in the template to, it would be nice if, you know, a lot of tables have this center line here for racking. It would be nice, I mean, it's, you know, it's not overly difficult to just gauge where the center of these circles are, but it would be nice if perhaps this template had a cutout center line, maybe on the central location, so that for tables that do have that line running down, you can very accurately gauge the center position. So do you know what I mean? Like, you know, have a little cutout at the bottom of one of these circles so that you can use that, make sure that line's in the center. Obviously the cutout has to be perfectly in the center, but we don't have that. So, and these holes aren't, I mean, I don't know if they're laser cut. I guess they are. I mean, oh, there's actually the plastic backing still on this plastic here. So that's might be what's making me think that they are not, that they weren't level. It's just the plastic overhang. So I guess it's laser cut. So I'm assuming it's accurate. Anyway, I can judge with my seeing balls where the center of this should be. Just check from the side. Check from here. Okay, the good thing, it's because it's so thick as well, it's quite heavy, so you don't have to worry about too much about it just moving by itself. You know, with like a plastic template, a breeze can blow it out of the way, but because this is nice and thick and heavy, it won't move around by itself unless you push it. So I just had a look from the side to see that it's lined up centrally with this hole. I've had a look down this way to see that it's on my center table line. And as much as I want to keep checking it, I don't think I can do any better than I have. So I guess now is the time to simply apply the donuts. Trying to ignore the marks that I've already got there and just place them as centrally as possible. So now I'm wondering if maybe I should get some tweezers to do this. So fucking weird. I went to the hospital the other day and the hospital was having their 20th anniversary or something, and they were giving every customer a nail care kit. I mean, which is fantastic. It's just a little bit fucking weird, but anyway, there were some tweezers in there, so it might help me to get the donuts in there without moving the template around. So I've washed my hands, I've brushed the table, I've vacuumed the table. It's not a new cloth. It's about 7 months old or so. So let's see how we go. So we've got some tweezers. That's right, I wasn't going to do the head spot first. All right. So all I can really do is try to get this as centrally located as I can on the template. And then now I'm hoping with this template I don't have to move these around once I've applied them, because when I did it without the template, that's what I would have to do, sort of get them into rough position, and then I'd have to like put each ball on and check if they were touching and take them off and put them down again. So I'm just going to use the template. I'm not going to check, I'm not going to adjust, I'm not going to put two here and then check if they're touching each other before I carry on, because that would defeat the point of having the template. The point is that I can just put these donuts in and hopefully they're in the right spot. So let's continue. So again here, if I was doing this myself without this template, at this point I would definitely be racking balls on these donuts to see if they're touching and to see how they're sitting. But again, I'm not going to do that with this because, well, you know, the advantage is that I now have this template that I can rely on to place these donuts to give me a good rack. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell from that camera angle, but I think I've done a very good job at getting them located. So I'm gonna take the phone out and give you a look. Okay, so if we come around from the top, I think I've done a pretty good job at getting those into a very central position, okay? Okay, so I've run the balls through the polishing machine for a couple of minutes, just to get any scuff marks or anything that may interfere with the accuracy of the racking. I placed the labels down with the tweezers and then showed you the overhead view, and I haven't firmly pressed them down yet. I've just, as you saw when I was applying the donuts, I was just running the end of the tweezers just around them just to keep them in place, but they're not firmly down yet, in case I do have to remove them. So, balls are polished, let's remove the template. And let's rack the balls. Well, I may as well go through and do a, not that the order matters, but I'll do a 9-ball rack first. And okay, so I can already see that there's, if I push them together, they're okay. Because remember, these are not going to cradle, you know, the donuts are not going to cradle them in the exact spot. And often when you apply donuts like this, it relies on the balls behind. It's the same with the template racking as well. It relies on the balls behind to sort of push each ball ahead of it up in front. So let's get them all on there in a 9-ball template and then see how they sit. So I can see they are kind of pushing onto the balls in front. Okay, so if I just put them on there like that, I've got a gap here, a gap here, everywhere else is touching. So my 9 ball is going to head towards that corner pocket, which is nice with that gap there. But let's give them a little push up and okay, just a slight little touch together, and now they are all touching. Yep. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Everything's touching there. There's a slight gap still on the 7 and the 9. But again, if I just give it a little push in, that's now gone. So you can't just throw them on there because, you know, obviously the circumference of the inside of the donuts is not accounting for the minuscule point of contact between the ball and the cloth. So they're not going to sit in perfect place. But it looks pretty good. Yeah, I mean, you could train the table as well with it, but I mean, then that defeats the purpose of having the templates, right? Because you don't, you know, hopefully this means you don't have to train the table. All right, so let's do a 10 ball rack. Okay, these two wing balls in the 10 ball rack look good. They're touching everywhere. 7's touching the 9, a little gap between the 5 and the 9. But again, if I just push it up a little bit, that closes the gap. Looks good. All right, let's throw a full 15 on. Okay. Now, see, the thing is, it's without the template, and it maybe even with the template, the thing that's tricky about placing the donuts is that, you know, obviously, unless they are absolutely in the right spot, if any of them are slightly closer than the width of the ball, it starts to create pressure in different positions. So, you know, you might be thinking, just, this might sound obvious, okay, so the 10's not touching the 4, right? So my first thought is that the donut for the 10 is not in the right position, but that may not be the case at all. It may be that the 12 is too close to the 4, and slightly this way, so it's pushing up on the 10 and pushing it away from the 4. So with any of these sort of donut systems, like it can be a sort of a logic process of trying to figure out why one ball won't be touched. It's not necessarily the donut of the ball that isn't touching. It could very well be some other ball near it that is pushing it in a direction and not allowing it to touch. So I'm having problems getting the 15 touching the 5. And the 7's come off the 9 again. And the problem is, like, I know from experience, so this is the first time I've set this up with, like, it could be that when I push this 7 in, because the 5's not in the right spot, it pushes the 15 away. Like, I know this is the first time I've used the template, but I know from experience that setting up the donuts myself, that it can be really fiddly to try and figure out which donut is the problem that's causing a ball not to touch. So, you know, that still might exist with the template as well, particularly because there's no, you know, as you saw, you're still relying on your eye, your sense of placement to make sure that those donuts are sitting, because the donut's not the exact size of the holes, obviously. It would be too difficult to get them in the right spot in one go without being able to access the edges of them. Well, maybe not, because they're donuts, but anyway, you're still relying on your eyes to perceive the donut to be in the center. So even if this is absolutely pinpoint accurate in terms of a template, it's still vulnerable to human error because you're trying to place it in the center of what is presumably a millimeter perfect template. So, all right, I mean, that looks pretty good to me. I think I've pretty much got everything touching in the end. So, you know, it's certainly not a case of just throwing them on there. and they're going to sit perfectly. You will have to, that 10's just not touching the 4. Yeah, see if I push that 10 in, it pushes the 12 down. And then the 12's not touching the 4. If I push the 12 up to the 4, it pushes the 10 out. So which ones, if I try to push them both in together, they create pressure against each other. So you know, if everything is touching, when you hit one of these edge balls, then the whole pack should move, basically. So it's not all seamless, but let's do a few breaks and see what happens. So I'll switch to the GoPro, to the table overhead. I'll do some 9-ball breaks, some 10-ball breaks. Again, I sold my break cue today, so you're not gonna get full ball breaks, but I'll do some straight pool breaks and we'll see how they end up. All right, let's switch to the overhead cam. Okay, I'm on the GoPro now, so I'm gonna run a few breaks through, see how it works out. So even though I know I shouldn't, when I'm playing straight pool, if anyone's seen any of my straight pool videos, this is my preferred break. And really it's just because I played snooker for a long time before I switched to playing pool. And so when I first started playing straight pool, I was like, okay, well which break shot, you know, anyone who watches snooker knows that going into the pack off the blue is one of the best ways to split the reds up. So I'm most familiar with the results of this break shot, but I know it's not good for my straight pool game. I know I should be breaking from the side because that's where I'm nearly always breaking from in a run, but I'm familiar with this, so. Pretty good. Now, you remember earlier in the video I said that there's a tendency for these balls here to sit dead on the donut that they're placed on, and the 3 has done exactly that. It stayed exactly on the donut without any movement. Now I don't know if you manage to get a tight rack, a perfectly tight rack without these donuts. I don't know if that would still be the case, but I'm going to push these down into place a bit firmer because I don't want them moving around. I have to say though, that spread was pretty good. Like, I'm really familiar with breaking the balls from that position, and that was pretty good. I've just polished the balls as well, so of course they're going to split nicely. All right, I'll do a couple of side breaks. So for me, my back is now hurting because I've been applying these, but for me, one of the advantages of having these donuts is that I can just zoop and push the balls up without having to lean over the table excessively. Except I'm missing a ball. Ah, the break ball. So I can just push them up and wasn't a very good example, and then just drag them off the spot. So I'm not gonna like bend over them and try to make sure they're all touching and all that kind of stuff. One. I mean, it's giving nice breaks. I'll do a soft one. It's pretty good. All right, let's do a few 9-ball breaks. Again, not having my break cue, I'm not going to be hitting it hard, but so I could see the ball was heading there, but without the pace, a lot of the other balls got in the way. Didn't see why that 9 was moving. I'm assuming the direction it was going, that something else hit it. The wing ball went, we'll do another one. So on this side the wing ball's going a bit high. I could adjust it, my brake, and get it there eventually. But alright, let's try some 10 ball brakes. It's pretty good spread. The 2 and 3 look like they were tracking. Try a dead center and see what happens to the balls below the foot spot. 6 and the 7 in this case. And that's about what I'd expect using a template rack. Braking like that, like soft braking from the center. I'd expect something like that using a template rack. Usually I'd get one of the 6s or 7s, but I'm only braking once or twice, so. My final thoughts, well, not my final thoughts, because I'm going to play with it a bit. We'll see how these, I haven't used these Avery stickers before. They seem pretty thin. But obviously, there's nothing you can put on the table that is going to not interfere with the balls. These are pretty good. But anything you put in the racking area is going to interfere with the balls. So if you play with anything like this, if you don't move the template, if you leave donuts on the table, at some point, guarantee they're going to fuck you somehow. They're going to help you sometimes as well, but I guarantee you at some point you'll play a shot and the cue ball will have been perfect for a ball in the corner or something, and it'll hit the edge of the donut and just roll an extra millimeter this way, and you'll be snookered on the ball that you were going for. It will happen. It's unavoidable. So it's sort of a trade-off of convenience, and if they're going at pace, it's no problem. But at some point, something annoying is going to happen if you use anything that stays here. But my thoughts on setting it up and initial racking is that it's with the template that the Permarack provides, it's a hell of a lot easier than trying to do it yourself without that template. It's still prone to human error in the fact that you have to gauge placing the donuts in the center of the template holes. So if you don't do that as accurately as possible, then it's going to be a mess, because there's quite a bit of leeway on the template holes compared to the size of the donuts that they provide. So you do have to make an effort to get those centrally located using the best of your visual acuity. If you don't, then it won't work at all. It's not difficult to do, but you've just got to be careful applying the donuts. From my initial attempts at racking, I would say it is also, there's a chance of the same problems I had doing it without that template when I was trying to do a donut rack myself using an 8-ball magic rack and training the table. I'd say it's definitely faster applying them, but just from what I could see there, racking the balls a few times, I'd say it's still susceptible to, like I talked about, that chain reaction of one donut being slightly off and that creating a series of pressure points along the balls that stops one ball touching somewhere. And you need to kind of, if you want to ensure that every ball is touching, you need to diagnose those points of pressure and figure out which donut's causing the problem, or not which one, but which 2 or 3 might be causing the problem. And that means sort of going back through the chain of balls, applying pressure on each ball, seeing which one moves, seeing which one wants to settle. This gave a really good result. I mean, for the 5 minutes it took me to apply the donuts, this is a very good result. And I think for straight pool particularly, it would be fine, no problems at all. I'd have to break a lot more on 9-ball and 10-ball with my break cue as well to see how it fares there. But you know, for the 5 minutes effort, it gives a really convenient, good rack. But I'll play with it a bit more, see how it plays out. I know that, like I said before, the donuts being on the table, if you put anything on the table, you're not going, like, eventually, at some point, whatever you put on the table is going to fuck you. And it's probably going to help you at some point as well. You just can't avoid that. So I don't need to play lots to know how it impacts just general play. But in terms of that quick setup and how good of a rack it's going to give me, we'll see over the next week or so playing straight pool, I guess, because again, no break here. So yeah, that's about it. I don't regret buying it. It's going to last forever as long as I look after it. So it's a one-time investment, and you just need to buy some really cheap-ass donuts to get yourself a permanent rack on your table. So if that's what you're looking for, then for 20 bucks, it's amazing. Plus shipping. If you're in America, the shipping will be irrelevant basically. And even internationally, it was only 20 bucks to get it shipped to Korea from America. So no regrets buying it, because I enjoy the donut templates anyway. But I can see that if you do want an absolutely perfect rack, you're still going to have to fiddle around a little bit with them, and maybe diagnose a few problems. I showed you from the overhead, it looked like I placed them about as perfectly as I could, and it's still not exact. It's just the nature of it, I guess. So there you go. My thoughts on installing and racking a few racks with the Permarack. See you, dudes.